Welcome to Little Moscow, a city that once housed thousands of Soviet troops. In the quiet woods of Germany, this was once the largest Soviet military camp outside of the USSR, full of Cold War secrets and military history. The evolution of Wünsdorf into a military hub began in the late 19th century. After the formation of the German Empire in 1871, Prussian military planners wanted to develop a strategic state-of-the-art area to consolidate power. Wünsdorf, located just 25 miles or 40 kilometers from Berlin, was selected as the ideal location for training and organizing troops. By 1910, Wünsdorf had fully transformed into a booming military town, complete with barracks, an infantry school, and telegraphic facilities. When World War I began, Wünsdorf was ready, and as Europe plunged into conflict, Wünsdorf became one of the continent's largest military installations, covering 60,000 acres. German soldiers trained here, and new technologies in warfare were tested on these grounds. The area was so strategically significant that Germany chose to establish its first mosque here in 1915 to accommodate Muslim prisoners of war, known as the Hauptmannlager, or Crescent Moon Camp. Established in 1914, the Crescent Moon Camp housed between 4,000 and 5,000 Muslim prisoners of war, most of whom had fought for the Allied forces. Germany wanted to transform these captives into allies in their struggle. To accomplish this, the German government treated detainees with a level of respect and luxury rare for POW camps. The prisoners were provided with everything they needed to practice their faith, including prayer spaces, halal food, and even a mosque, the first ever built in Germany. It was completed in July 1915, yet fell into disrepair and was eventually demolished in the mid-1920s. After the war, Germany maintained the area as a military training ground. Under the Nazi regime, the area became even more important, as in 1935 the Wehrmacht moved its headquarters to Wünsdorf. The area began to swell with the construction of countless fortified bunkers and underground facilities. Towards the end of World War II, Wünsdorf felt the impact of the Allied bombings. Although its thick-walled bunkers withstood much of the assault, parts of the town were damaged, and casualties mounted. By April 1945, as the Allies advanced on Berlin, the Nazi forces abandoned Wünsdorf. When Soviet troops arrived, they found the base nearly empty. The quiet takeover marked a turning point in Wünsdorf's history, as the Soviet Union would soon transform this former Nazi stronghold into its own secretive military hub. The Forbidden City, as it would come to be known, was about to be born, and the Soviet influence would shape Wünsdorf in ways unimaginable to its German founders. With little resistance, the Red Army took control, transforming Wünsdorf from a Nazi command center into the largest Soviet military hub outside of the USSR. Thus began Wünsdorf's new life as Little Moscow, a hidden city of Soviet power in the heart of Germany. Over the decades, it grew into a massive base, home to as many as 75,000 Soviet soldiers, their families, and support staff. The town was designed to function as a self-sufficient Soviet city, complete with schools, shops, hospitals, and theaters. A direct rail link connected Wünsdorf to Moscow, with daily trains ensuring that supplies and Soviet culture were always close at hand. The area was sealed off, becoming what locals called Die Verboten Stadt, the Forbidden City. The famous Zeppelin communications bunker, originally built by the Nazis, became a Soviet hub of intelligence and command, ready to mobilize forces at a moment's notice. The Soviets understood Wünsdorf's strategic significance, recognizing that it was a powerful base from which they could monitor and, if necessary, confront NATO forces just across the border. Life in Wünsdorf was unique. It became a slice of the Soviet Union within Germany. Soviet schools educated the children in Russian, Soviet stores offered goods unavailable to East Germans, and the community maintained Soviet traditions and festivals. A massive statue of Lenin stood at the town center, symbolizing the ideological commitment of the Soviet inhabitants. The base had all the comforts of Soviet life, including sports facilities, theaters, and cultural centers. Yet, the Forbidden City was also a place of strict rules and military discipline. At its peak, Wünsdorf was a highly fortified and heavily armed installation. In total, nearly 380,000 Soviet soldiers were stationed across East Germany, with around 180,000 Soviet civilians living in military towns similar to Wünsdorf. The Soviet Union poured resources into maintaining this vast military presence, and Wünsdorf functioned as the command center for all of it. Large-scale exercises, parades, and training missions kept soldiers battle-ready, a constant reminder of the potential for conflict with the West. Wünsdorf's role as the Red Army's nerve center in Germany lasted for nearly 5 decades. But as the Soviet Union began to dissolve in the late 1980s, the hold of the Forbidden City began to weaken. The collapse of communism in Eastern Europe marked the beginning of the end for the Soviet stronghold at Wünsdorf. With the fall of the Berlin Wall and German reunification, it became clear that Soviet forces would soon be called home, and Wünsdorf's era as Little Moscow would come to a close. In 1994, the last trains departed, leaving behind a town that had once pulsed with military precision, now silenced and abandoned. Homes were abandoned quickly, with furniture, appliances, and even pets left behind. Shops were fully stocked with radios, TVs, and electronics that would never be used again. In their rush, they also left behind massive quantities of military equipment, including 98,300 rounds of ammunition, 47,000 pieces of ordnance, and over 29 tons of munitions. Plans to revive Wünsdorf have come and gone over the years. The regional government envisions a new purpose for the historic site, hoping to attract investors to breathe life back into the decaying buildings. Some suggest it could become a university or a cultural center, but for now the town remains suspended in time, a quiet monument to an era when it was the heart of the Soviet presence in Germany. And here you can see an ad renderings of what this could be turned into, maybe for investors to see. So they are renovating all of these. You can tell inside a lot of rooms are numbered. So the construction process has already begun. They probably already started clearing it out. Look at this old door.